Welcome to the Dance Studio Empire podcast, a mix of business strategies, simple tips for studio growth and success, with a touch of inspiration, motivation, plus raw and honest conversations to ensure you are building your studio empire. I'm your host, Jen Dalton, studio owner for 30 years, dance business coach, and author of the book Teaching Dance Beyond the Steps. My business philosophy is creativity is our superpower, and I believe we all have the means and ability to infiltrate this into our studio. Just sometimes we can get too busy, distracted, or overwhelmed to see that. And so this is exactly what I am here to help you do. Okay then, let's do this. Hit that subscribe button, sit back and relax. Now let's get ready to build your dance studio empire. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to this week's episode of Dance Studio Empire. Now, I thought I would change things up a little bit this week and answer some questions that have come in from studio owners. Now, I'm going to read out the questions. I'm going to value add with my suggestions and from my experiences. But as usual, if you want to be involved, I would love to hear from you as well. You might have some different points you want to add. You can do this by jumping onto Instagram. Our page is at Dance Studio Empire, or even just jumping onto Facebook. We have our private group for studio owners only, and that is Dance Studio Empire. So please join in that group if you're not already. I do a fair bit of live training in there. There's resources, plus a great community where you can ask questions as well. So with that, I think we should get going. Now, the first question I'm going to answer is, when you get to the stage in your business where you want to reduce your own teaching hours and step out of the business so you can work on it, how do you prepare for that and manage the transition? So in terms of parents, but also finding the right person. So this is the question that was asked. First of all, I would suggest that you don't start a studio with the intent of stepping out of it really quickly. With our particular type of business, generally, and I know there are exceptions, but generally we are starting the business because we want to share our passion, we want to share our talent, however, whatever form that takes for you in your studio. But you really need to build a solid foundation of what you want your studio to be. Now, I am, of course, all about building your studio to run as a business and a very successful business. But that takes building a solid foundation, and it really takes you being there for a while. So that's my first point, is don't start it planning to step out of it generally. And I know, and that's fine if you choose to do that. But for me, I really feel like you need to, solidify who you are, what you are, before you can start putting people into then duplicate that. All right. Now, the next thing is I would just suggest transitioning slow. So anybody who you are putting in, so maybe it's a new teacher, maybe you have an assistant teacher that you've been training, one of your senior students is about to graduate. That's a really great way, because they've seen you teach in the class, so they know your expectations. It's a really great way if you want to start handing over some teaching work. But have them assist you, have them become a guest, whether it's at a workshop or do a guest class, do some co-teaching with you. Now, the benefit of doing this is then the parents are going to see you working with this person. So it's not like you're stepping away and you're just putting someone in because you've got better things to do, which it can sometimes look like that. So if you're putting in that time, the transition is slow. The parents will see that your kids, your dancers, will start to learn and trust that you are giving this person, over to them, and they're going to be okay because you want the best for them. You are really trying to give them the best. So that's what I would suggest with that. Also having really good training as well, which I think actually down a bit further, there's another question about that. So I'll go into that in a minute. But that's what I would suggest. Finding the right person. If you do have a senior student who is graduating, yes, definitely. If you are interviewing, just make sure you are interviewing someone and hiring someone that aligns with your studio values. Because if you get that part wrong, that can cause a lot of ongoing effects. So my advice there is just hire the right person that aligns with your studio, or don't hire at all until you find that person. All right, so that is the first question. Now, the second question is, for teachers who only do a few hours per week, how do you make them feel valued and part of the family so that they want to invest in you and are happy to put in some extra time, do extra tasks here and there that aren't necessarily paid or part of the regular hours? And then she's got in brackets, obviously training we pay for, but for example, helping do stories on Instagram, helping plan a workshop, etc. Okay, so first of all, going back to, hopefully you have hired this person as they align with your studio values. Having that right person in is going to help, because if this is an expectation or something you would like, then hopefully that person feels the same and is happy to do that, to that for you. Of course, I really believe that all teachers should be paid for doing everything that they do, but there are some things that is really helpful, and I believe someone who does those little extras without the expectation of being paid are actually going to go a lot further, a lot faster in their career. But that's just a side note. I do pay my teachers for all the training and stuff. All right, so hopefully you've hired the right person, and then I would just suggest trying to get them involved. So, making sure that when you do hire them, they go through the proper onboarding, they feel comfortable with the team, maybe go out for lunch or have them meet everybody else. So I think I've spoken to teachers in the past who feel quite lonely and isolated. So they just turn up with their music, plug in their phone, and they start teaching, and there isn't much connection. For me, this is just part of my studio, and what I believe, connection is so important, and that's how you're going to help them get involved. Now, when it comes to those extra tasks, make it as easy for them as possible. So prepare what you need to, whether that is, so say you mentioned about doing stories or Instagram. Have templates set up, have a shared document, maybe a Google Doc, where you share different ideas or templates or expectations so they know what you want. It's really quick and easy for them, and then they're more likely to want to help you out. So that's what I would suggest for that one. All right, moving on. Next question. Is it a good idea to utilize parents in the studio who may have certain expertise that you need? So, for example, a bookkeeper, desk staff, or is it best to get an outside employee? If it's fine, what sort of boundaries would you put in place? Okay. Now, my answer to this is it depends. Now, it's going to depend on quite a few things. First thing is going to depend on the size of your studio and how long you've been running for. Because if you're starting out, you will not have extra money to be paying someone to do tasks for you. And generally, unless you've bought a studio with existing students, if you're starting from scratch and you're building up numbers, you pretty much can manage most things by yourself to start with, and I highly suggest you doing that. It also depends on the hours. How long do you want this person for? Is it for a 15-minute changeover that you'd like one of the parents to keep their eye on the kids as they're being picked up? Or is it a 4-hour stint, 3 days a week? Have a think about what that is. And then now my next thing with hiring someone that or a parent, how well do you know them? And I only say this because I have had she's a dance parent working for me for a long time. Her daughter actually started in 2002, and she obviously isn't dancing with us anymore, but her sibling still is. And this lady, I met her while I was training. She was actually my trainer in the police, so I was working with her a lot. We were spending a lot of time in the cars together. And so once I got speaking with her, and she was looking for her daughter to do dancing, but she couldn't actually afford it. She was a single mum and she had no support from the father of the child. And so I said, oh, no worries. She can just dance with me for free. That doesn't matter to me. I really like this lady. She worked hard and tried hard. Well, she said, how I want to help you in return. And so she actually started sitting on our front desk. So she was my first sort of admin employee as such. But it was more as a contra deal, which is another topic which we can go into after. This lady we are really great friends. We still are. And and she still to this day is helping me out. She doesn't sit regularly on the desk anymore, but she helps out at concerts and she helps out at our open days and our registration days. And honestly, she's a lifesaver for me. So that's one scenario that it did work out. But yeah, it just comes down to how well you know someone, because I have heard those horror stories where the best friend comes in and helps and then they end up leaving, or just awful stuff, because they are going to have exposure to your financials. They're going to have exposure to a lot of confidential information. So it's quite a risk when you're putting a friend in, so someone who you're not paying or is a professional in that particular area. So you just have to assess it for yourself. It really is going to depend where you are. And then again, when it comes to that pay versus the contra deal, definitely in the beginning, if you're starting out, contra deals work really well for you because you're not having to outlay or find the money. And if you've got the right person in, they're going to be very grateful that their child or children are dancing for free or for a discount, whatever it is. However, I do feel a lot safer paying people money because I just feel that helps with that line of professionalism. So, but it depends where you're starting. It depends where you are right now. But yeah, that is my suggestion with that. Okay, next question. When is the right time to bring on admin or a teaching support? So especially if you don't run consecutive classes, so you have the capacity to teach all the classes. When outsourcing admin, how do you empower them to do things as you would without micromanaging? Okay, now this is micromanaging. We all like to say we don't micromanage, but to start with, definitely we all do when we're stepping back. Now, when is the right time to bring on support? My answer to this is when it's more valuable to the business to have you working in it versus teaching the classes. So it could be 10 years, it could be 1 year, it could be 20 years. It really is, you have to make that assessment for yourself. Now, for example, we brought my mum on, I don't know, I'm going to say 15 years ago. I don't know. My brain is terrible with timings, right? Anyway, so when we approached my mum about, joining the business, she was working full time. And so we went to her with a job offer. I had a couple of young kids. The business was quite big. And she was actually also helping out on the side. So she was helping with some of the bookwork already, and she was doing some of the costuming as well. And so we went to her and said, we'd like to offer you a position. So we were matching her full-time rate. So she was working in a professional office in the city. So that was a big financial commitment for the business. It was our biggest outlay that we ever offered at that point in time. But I trusted and believed that this particular hire was going to benefit the business. And it not only benefited, it tenfolded. The trajectory of that putting my mum in the business did for my business is incredible. And so we're not very lucky because we knew what we were hiring, but it certainly made a big difference and was the right choice. And it was also when I had young children. So she was there to be able to help with my kids and just support in life in general. So that was just a really smart decision for us. Absolutely. Never looking back. She was more valuable in the business for me to take over roles from me so I could do other things. Now, on the flip side of that, there was a hire that I did at one stage. And now this particular teacher, I hired her out of desperation because I had a teacher in the class and I think she got a job on a cruise ship. And so she had to leave fairly short notice, great for that teacher. So it left me with these classes. Now, I actually could have taken these classes because I wasn't teaching, but I was in a bit of a routine with my small babies. And so I just, that's why I'd handed over these night classes. So I interviewed this lady. She was bright and bubbly, but I knew she wasn't right for our studio. But I was so desperate to not be there because I wanted to be home. I was, tired looking after my kids. And so I hired her, and it was such a mistake. I ended up losing people because, just still to this day, I can't even put my finger on what it was, but just her mannerisms and her personality, she just took up a lot of space, and it just didn't align with the values of our studio. Nothing against her. She is what she is. Anyway, my mistake, I lost a lot of people. I learned a lot of lessons. That's why I would continually say, don't hire out of desperation, because this can be the result. So yes, I've definitely got it right at times, but I've also got it wrong at times. So you just have to make those assessments for yourself and make sure that they're bringing value to your business and not losing your business, like one of my hires. Now, when it comes to empowering them to do things without micromanaging, this is really hard. And it was yesterday I was doing some social media, and I was writing out a few stories from the past. And one of the things I remember when I first started putting teachers on was the fact that I would sit in the studio. So I'd be on my laptop and doing work, but I'd sit in the studio while these poor teachers were in there trying to teach these classes. I'm talking senior teachers here with my senior kids. So this was completely all about me, because I was having trouble like handing this over, and the delegating and the trusting, and I look back now and I feel sorry for those teachers, but it was really just me struggling to let go of that micromanaging behavior. But I did, and now I'm probably on the flip side of that, and I maybe don't. I have too much trust. I'm like, yeah, you just go and do it, and that's totally fine. But hey, I've got a good team, so it's all good. So yeah, definitely organizing a proper onboarding and training for them. Now, I think sometimes onboarding is forgotten about, but it's really important, because think of yourself if you were starting in a new company and you knew your craft, definitely, but it's a new environment. There's new expectations, there's new rules, there's different personalities that you don't know yet. So what's the best thing for you? How would you feel most comfortable if you were coming into that situation? And so that's how I look at it with teachers, new teachers coming in. They may have had lots of experience teaching, but I want them to feel comfortable in my studio with my team. I want them to feel part of it. So onboarding, giving them training to make them feel comfortable. Also, be really clear on what your expectations are. And so expectations for them as a teacher, your expectations for them as part of the team, like let them know, so that they're not left guessing, because I think sometimes when they're left guessing, they don't want to ask questions, so they'll make decisions and they're not necessarily going to be right for you. So it is your responsibility as the studio owner to make sure that this is very clear. Not only tell them what they are, but make sure they understand it. Um, Give them time as well. So it is going to take time for them to adjust, for them to learn, and keep yourself open to questions. So encourage questions all the time. It really is an instilling of trust in them, but the more prepared you are on your side, the easier it's going to be to hand it over, and then you're going to empower them, because you don't want to suffocate them, you don't want to stifle them, because you really want the best for them. I say this, I've had teachers in the past, and they're not quite getting it right. And instead of just continuing, no, that's not right, no, that's not right, I try and switch my thinking about how can I explain it differently so they understand. Maybe I need to show them. And so that's what we've done. So it does take just that little bit of time, but absolutely worth it to do that proper onboarding and training. All right, hopefully that has answered your question for that one. Okay, last question, I'll finish up here today, is how do you manage times when you're lacking creativity, you experience burnout, and you can't get productive no matter what you do, but you must still show up for the business and be the decision maker? Okay, this is not a matter of if this is going to happen, it is a matter of when. And so Absolutely. I think there's more awareness of it now to try and maintain a balanced, healthy lifestyle throughout it. But the reality is, we are busy, we are trying hard to build businesses. Some of you have young families, some of you have teenagers, some of you are single and trying to live the party life as well as run a business. So there's lots of things happening. What I would suggest you do, the first thing is just at this point, when you have nothing left, you've got nothing left to give, focus on the one thing that you need to keep your business going. And just one thing. So it may be, the priority may be to get your fees out to your parents so that you've got the invoices out so that they can start paying fees, so you've got money in your bank account. That might just be your first number one priority. It may be that you have to book and confirm your concert venue and concert details. That might be your one thing that you need to do. But instead of trying to juggle all the things, focus on the one thing, because it will just help calm your mind. And then once that's done, then move on to the next. And I know that's easier said than done, because we usually have about 27 things happening at one time. I absolutely get it. But during these times, you don't have extra space and you don't have extra energy to be focusing on more than one thing. So just the most important thing, because the reality is you do need to keep going. We can't just go to the bedroom and shut the door and sleep for 3 days straight. That's, well, if you can, excellent for you, but most of us know. All right, second thing is, this time, ride the wave of your hard work. So I'm assuming, your business would go in seasons. And so you would have times where you're really productive. You'd have times where you're motivated and you're charging through. And then there's these other times where you're exhausted. You're lacking the creativity. You're close to burnout. So in those times when things are flowing and you're absolutely smashing it, that's when you're setting your business up for the opposite times. So when it is that time, you can ride the wave of that hard work. Go back and have a look at the social media posts you've done. Go back to some of those combinations that you created and you choreographed when you were had all this inspiration happening. Go back and use that stuff again. Just change the songs. You've got it. So just, yeah, don't try and create new stuff. Go back and see what you have and just reuse that to get you through this time. Okay, the next point I would suggest is to actually physically remove yourself or change your location. So sometimes, a really great example is, I've got a couple of offices at my house, and one of the main office that I use, which it's quite a masculine space because I do share it with my husband, which is fine. It's quite officey. It's got lots of files and papers and stuff. So it's quite not cluttered, but it's not as open and airy as I would love. And I actually this week have changed. I've moved to another office in my house, which is all white and open and airy. And I just thought it would help with my creativity. And it has. It's been an incredible week. So changing your location can help sometimes, just give you that boost. If you're choreographing, maybe if you choreograph at the studio, maybe try just choreographing in your lounge room. Or if you're in your lounge room, try doing it on your back deck, whatever it is, to try and change that location, because sometimes that is enough just to help break through. All right. Number 4 suggestion is to take a break from your own learning. Now, I know a lot of you studio owners are entrepreneurs and you are continually trying to better yourself and educate yourself. Absolutely, hats off to you. You are my people. Well done. But there are times when you are exhausted and you are experiencing that burnout, that you just need to take a break from your own learning. So stop the consuming, and just have a break from that for a bit. I know for myself, at times when I had burnout a couple of years ago, and I got to the point where I couldn't listen to a podcast, I couldn't listen to the radio, I couldn't anything. I just needed complete silence when I wasn't having to be present with people or my family. So that's, just clear your mind, give your mind some peace. It will just help with the recovery process. Okay, next point is say no to any extra work or commitments. So this might be hard too, especially if you are needing money, or it's something that you've committed to. Very hard, obviously, to pull back on events. So probably, don't let anyone down if possible. But if new opportunities come up, just say no, or just not now. So just, be sensible, make smart choices just to give yourself a break where you can. And finally, number 6, just remember your why. So in these times when it's really hard to keep going, remember why you started and why you are doing this every day. Now, your answer might surprise you, and the outcome might surprise you, but just take a bit of time to remember, okay, that's right. I really did. I love seeing the smile on the kids' faces. That's what it's all about. Seeing them thrive up on stage. That's what it's about. So just remember why it is you do, and it will help just keep you on track. Just keep on track. All right. So they are just 6 points that I would suggest you try if you are at that point. The other thing is, with that, there's actually no time limit to your recovery. So if someone tells you, oh, it'll take a week, they don't know. You don't know. All I suggest with that is make a time that you think you might be working towards. So this is how I've done it in the past. If I'm feeling really flat, I've got no energy, I'm really exhausted, I will give myself, I'm going to give myself 2 weeks to just take my foot off the accelerator and just focus on what I need to, remove myself, take that break from my own learning for 2 weeks. Now that 2 weeks, I don't hold myself to that. So if I get to the end of that 2 weeks and I'm still feeling exhausted, I will extend it another couple of weeks or 1 week or whatever I need to. Again, this is just a matter for you, but don't let anybody tell you how quickly you need to get over things or a time limit or a time frame or by this date. It's just a matter for you. Just try and be smart about it. I do like having targets, so somewhere that you're heading, because it does give you something to work towards. But yeah, don't hold yourself to that point. Just be comfortable enough in yourself to extend that if you feel you need it. Super important, because if you aren't functioning and you aren't working, your business isn't functioning and not working. So you need to be at your best self. And I know that is so much easier said than done. I know, I live it. Anyway, if you would like any suggestions or tips with that, please reach out. I'm happy to talk to you. As I did mention, I went through a pretty severe burnout a couple of years ago now. But yeah, for someone who thought it would never happen to me, it did. So I know how real it is now. But I also did fully recover, and I can talk you through that process as well. All right, my friends, I am going to leave it there today. I hope you have got some insight into some of the questions that are being asked out there. If there is anything else you would like to know, please ask me, and I can do another one of these podcasts down the track. I think it's really valuable because this is the stuff you guys want to know. So I'm going to tell you or help you make some decisions along the way. All right, I'm going to leave it there. As I said, make sure you are following us on Instagram at Dance Studio Empire, as well as joining our private Facebook group on Facebook for Dance Studio Empire as well. That one's just for studio owners and teachers. All right, I hope you have a really great week, and I will catch you on next week's episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Dance Studio Empire. If you enjoyed it, please share it on your stories on Instagram and be sure to tag me at Dance Teacher Central so I can say thank you. And if you really want to support me and the show, I'd absolutely love for you to leave a rating or review. For all the latest from me, you can follow me at Dance Teacher Central on Instagram and Facebook. Be sure to tune in next week for more strategies and tips to ensure you are building your dance studio empire.